Welcome to Freeway Films, where I talk about movies on my way to my real job, which, by the way, has nothing to do with entertainment and everything to do with being boring. I'm your host, Steve, and on today's episode, Back to the Future Trilogy. So Marty McFly is our main man, and he's got this weird relationship with Doc Brown. And this Doc Brown character, we all know and love him as Christopher Lloyd, builds a time machine, and he sends Marty back in time. So Marty's got to save his own existence by making his parents go to a dance and make out together. But then in the second one, he's got to go not only to the past, but also to the future, which he does first. And then he goes to the present, sees everything all wonky, and then he goes back to the past. And in that one, he has to, because he screws up everything in the future, basically he has to save everyone else's existence from the terrible thing that is Biff 1985. And then in the third one, you know, he's got to save Doc Brown's existence. Otherwise, he's gonna die in the Wild West. But let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. The first one is clearly the best. I mean, it's pretty clear that at the end of the first one, it's supposed to be the end of the movie. Like, there wasn't supposed to be any more. But they did such a good job at making the audience actually want more that they convinced themselves that the audience needed more. Gluttonous Hollywood. This time, I think it was to our benefit. I mean, as much as somebody might hate the second and the third one, let's not get ahead of ourselves. They're still pretty great movies. And that's just because sometimes, you know, we lose when they're gluttonous. I mean, we've all heard of the 50 Shades trilogy. That was great. And I mean, how many Freddy Kruegers and Saws and Jason movies are there? So we all know how gluttonous Hollywood can be a little crazy. I mean, those films were definitely metaphorical heart attacks waiting to happen. You know what I mean? There's so many things that are wrong with the movie that we just, as an audience, we just accept. I mean, let's start with the obvious and the cliche, right? Like, why the heck is Doc Brown, an old man, hanging out with a teenage kid? That's super weird, right? I mean, we've all said it, we all know it. It's been said so many times that that's like the first thing people say about Back to the Future. They're like, why is this guy hanging out with this young kid? And they're right. I mean, is Doc a pervert? Maybe Marty is just smarter than we think he is. You know, who knows? Also, how terrible would it have been to play matchmaker to your parents? That's super weird. And really, like, you are now ingrained in their history as the guy who got them together. Not to mention Marty's smoking hot 50s mom wanted to make out with him because she's freaky. I mean, those are all parts of my parents that I would never want to see. The wooing and the romance, that's not what I would want to see. If there's one thing we get from Back to the Future, it's gratitude that I never had to be my dad's wingman. I think, though, what I love the most about these movies is how great and cool Marty McFly is as a character. I think at one point in my life, I distinctly remember saying heavy, and I was young, so I said it wrong. You know, like, oh man, these pants, they're so heavy. My shoes, man, they're just so heavy. Man, that color blue, so heavy. You know, it was just bad. But what can I say? I wanted to be like Marty McFly. He's a cool, dope dude. But basically, I mean, Michael J. Fox's performance as Marty McFly cemented that role. I mean, if Hollywood ever tried to remake that movie with someone other than Michael J. Fox, it would be destroyed. It would be completely ruined. And the same thing is true with Doc Brown. We could probably live or die without George McFly, Crispin Glover, but I mean, that is what it is. And I mean, we can't forget about the DeLorean. I don't really know how cool it was in the 80s, as I didn't live in the 80s. But if it was a cool car in the 80s, it feels appropriate that it died of cocaine-related incidences. I mean, what didn't die in the 80s from cocaine? Am I right? Oh, drugs. How you slay me. I guess the good news about the DeLorean being a time machine is that when you see it now, it really does take you back in time. Because nostalgia. But I tell you what, in 2018, the DeLorean is quite possibly the least influential car ever made. When is the last time you saw a stainless steel, gray painted looking car? They're always real colors with real paint and real doors. I think it's weird that we as the audience, we just kind of accept this strange and unusual relationship that is Marty McFly and Doc Brown. I mean, how did they meet? Why did they meet? I guess they try to answer that question when they show that he ripped up the letter from the past that's now in the 1985. Oh my gosh. The movie Back to the Future 1 is how Doc Brown and Marty McFly met. So they meet in 1955, and Doc Brown, is trying to tell the future with his weird machine thing, and Marty comes barging on the door, and that's how they meet, which means in the future, Doc Brown had to be like, oh my gosh, I have to find young Marty McFly so that he can save my life in the present. I have to send him back in time, or else I'm never gonna make the time machine. Mind blown. Time is the best. But while this is a revelation that I have just made, it feels like this is obvious to anyone else who's seen the movie. I'm usually a little late to the party. I think it would be nice to see how Marty met Doc, because we know that Doc met Marty in 1955. But how did that first approach go? Like, was Doc like hanging around the school and being like, hey Marty, you look pretty familiar. I've got a pretty big guitar amp. You want to come play it? Maybe feed my dog? Huh? Yeah, I think that was a weird conversation. And what's worse is that Marty was like, guitar amp? Yes. Dog? Yes. Plutonium? Yes. I bought these movies not only on VHS, but then on DVD, and then on Blu-ray, and then the digital copy came out, and I was like, sign me up. You should definitely have these movies for yourself. They're definitely worth owning. And if you haven't seen them, they're definitely worth renting, maybe on Netflix or something, the DVD option. But you know what? I think they're so good. If you find them, you should just go ahead and buy them, because you're not going to regret that you've bought them. I regret being born not soon enough to enjoy the films in a theater. That is probably one of the bigger regrets of my life. Not being born soon enough to have the opportunity to regret not seeing the movie in theaters. I'll say it. It's a little crazy, but I don't care. Anyways, Back to the Future. Have you seen it? Did you like it? Do you own it? Tell me what you think. And if you know anything exciting and fun about these movies, let me know. And please subscribe to the channel, where you'll be getting lots of all kinds of content, lots of great stuff every week.